It's the London Lowdown.
Like the positions Chelsea need to strengthen in, really, you'd be looking at striker is the main kind of the area that they need to strengthen in. Obviously, one name's been mentioned the whole time of who Chelsea have linked with and who will take this Chelsea team to the next level, which is Erling Haaland. Obviously, we've seen a lot of speculation over the last couple of weeks between Chelsea, City, obviously United getting a mention there. You have your Real Madrids who are going to be linked with everyone really. Well, all the best players are going to be linked with. I still have a good feeling about him coming to Chelsea. A lot of people think that Man City are favourites, which they probably are, considering the position that they're in, and obviously Haaland's connections to the club with his father and his father playing there before. But I just think when Roman wants someone, Roman gets someone. Abramovich is going to have another spend in the summer, we think. Obviously, the commitment he's shown to Chelsea the last 17 years has been amazing, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, judging by the interview that he gave yesterday. And he's also opened legal proceedings against journalists for defamation kind of articles that they've written about him that they're untrue. But yeah, Roman's going to stay for a long time, and I don't think the spendings are to stopping after last summer. Obviously, spending over 200 million, which is colossal, and team didn't really kick on at the start of the year, but starting to come together now under Tuchel, and it's looking good. And I think the main thing missing from that is a striker. So we're just kind of really going to go through the options, and Haaland is obviously target number one. He's the one striker in world football that'll take any team to the next level. You'd be looking at kind of league titles, Champions Leagues with Haaland up top. I think, especially with the squad that Chelsea have, I think they're kind of the second strongest squad in the Premier League, really, behind Man City maybe. Um, that's the only one I think is really ahead of them at the moment. But if they get Haaland in there, I think they can compete with Man City. Also, good evening to John. Good evening to you too, John, from the comments. Hope all is well with you. So yeah, if you think of kind of like you have your Havertz, Mason Mount, those kind of players supplying Haaland next year, especially, I think he'd suit Chelsea's style of play a lot more than what he'd suit Man City's. I don't think he's a Guardiola type striker. I think with the way Chelsea are playing right now, kind of very solid at the back, a lot of counters kind of opening up, and they've speed there. I think that'd suit Haaland's style of play. Um, Obviously, it's dangerous putting all your eggs into one basket with him. You could follow him for the whole summer, and he could move to Madrid or City. We just don't know, but I think it's a risk we're taking. Um, but yeah, he's obviously the first choice there. Second choice, we've seen kind of linked with the last 2 weeks. We've seen a lot of reports coming out, which is more of maybe a stopgap than what Haaland will be. Is Sergio Aguero? Obviously, he's out of contract with Man City in the summer. Speculation from a reporter from the Daily Mail, an Argentinian journalist, that when he was leaving Stamford Bridge after the high of the Atletico Madrid game last week, a senior Chelsea source said to him that we usually don't sign Argentinians, but that could change soon enough. Obviously, on about Aguero, saying the interest is very high there. Whether they follow through with it or not, or whether Aguero ends up at Barcelona, is another thing. But Aguero is an interesting option, especially if you can't get Haaland. Personally, for me, I think we should go all out for Haaland. If not, if we can get Aguero, take him in for the year or two. But if we can't get either of those, I'm just not quite sure what we can do up front. Maybe give Kai Havertz a run as the false nine. Um, he can definitely play there, and he has all the attributes to play there. But I just don't think if we're going to splash the cash, it has to be Haaland really. I'd really like Lukaku, but there's nothing gathering pace there. There's no legs to that story. It's more kind of speculation more than anything. I think he'd be very, very good for Chelsea, and also Harry Kane. But sure, like that's never happening with Daniel Levy there. He'll never ever do deals with Chelsea. So that's another write off, to be honest with you. Um, the third and final option, I think, really for a forward player for Chelsea in the summer. Seen him linked the last couple of days. I wouldn't really be too kind of interested as Paulo Dybala. He's a very, very good player, but I think Chelsea are kind of they're stacked in what he does. They have Havertz there, can play the false nine. In Cam, they have Mount, you have your Ziyech's, you have Pulisic still there. I think they can all play kind of his role deeper in the field, and Havertz can play that false nine role that Dybala can play. So I wouldn't be too interested in him, even though he's a great player. Also been linked to Spurs, would be a very good signing for Spurs, I think. Kind of on the outs, I suppose, in the forward line, we're looking at Tammy's kind of futures is at risk. Obviously the contract talks have stalled and they're not going to be held until the summer. It's not looking really, really good, especially on kind of Tammy's side. He's seen the ambition that Chelsea have kind of going forward towards Haaland. The aim for a top striker there, maybe he kind of sees his future away from Chelsea, which is very understandable. I'd love to keep Tammy at the club. Obviously, a Chelsea boy. He has scored goals. I know he's a bit raw still, and he's not the complete forward, but his scoring record is still very decent. And I think if he went to another Premier League club, he'll bang in goals. And obviously, we have the situation with Oli Giroud, where his contract is going to be expiring in the summer. Personally, if we got someone like Haaland in who has that youth, I'd love to keep Giroud. Makes sense for Tammy to move on, to be honest. As much as I loved him for his career, I think if someone like Haaland came in, he'd be better off to move on. Keep Giroud there, who I feel will be happy enough after the Euros passing the summer. Obviously, kind of this year he wants to play to get himself into that Euro squad to break the French scoring record, which I hope he does. The greatest striker France have ever had, Oli Giroud. It's only right that he finishes top scorer for them, a record goal scorer. But yeah, I think that's kind of the options, kind of when you're on about up front and who could be going really. I think Werner is going to be here for years to come. Obviously, he kind of had a slow start to the year, but I think if Chelsea are to go places in the Champions League this season, I think he's the key. A lot of the defenses are going to be playing a high line. I think it will. I think it will suit Werner down to the ground, and he could be the key to beating a lot of teams in Europe. Just to go back to John's comment here, just on about Marcos Alonso, asking does he have a long-term future at Chelsea? To be honest with you, with the formation we're playing now, three at the back with the wing backs, there's probably no better man in the Premier League to play that role than Alonso. It suits him down to the ground. He's been phenomenal in that position for Chelsea. Obviously, he's lacking in the left back position. So I just think that kind of for Alonso, it's really down to whether Tuchel is going to keep a three at the back next year or whether he's going to try and implement a four at the back system. Personally, for me, I wouldn't I have my doubts about Chilwell, but personally, I wouldn't be prioritising the left back position really for upgrading. I think Chilwell can be very good at left back, and I think by keeping Alonso at the club, it's also giving you the option to switch to a back three and play a wing back. So it's leaving you like you can be flexible next season against opponents. And also if you're playing a four at the back, Aspi can play left back too. Like he can cover there, and he's going to be here next year again. We need his experience. So I think Alonso stays. To be honest with you, if you asked me this at the start of the year when Lampard was here, I think he would have been gone first thing. I think maybe Emerson kind of suffers really in the summer. I think he's going to move on. He's a higher value than Alonso. He can get more money out of Emerson. So I think Emerson could be the one to go, and I think Alonso and Chilwell are going to stay here. Just to touch on Keane's comment here, obviously we heard the news today that financial fair play is likely to be scrapped and we're going to bring in a new system. If that's the case, Chelsea and City they could spend a lot of money in the summer. Obviously it bolsters a lot of clubs that could have been in a position where they couldn't spend a financial fair play, but like the likes of United, I think if they're going to spend, they'd spend regardless of financial fair play, because obviously United are a massive club and kind of the revenue that they take in, they would be able to spend regardless. But I just don't think the board that they have there are going to spend a lot of money. Obviously, you just know how United have operated the last couple of years. Obviously, under Van Gaal, they brought in a couple of big signings like Di Maria, but we haven't really seen multiple signings in the one summer from United in a while. I still think they will get Sancho in the summer. He'll be their big signing. They'll fill in one or two more gaps, but apart from that, the financial fair play is going to suit Chelsea and City a lot more, I think, which is music to my ears, because more money, more spending. I know obviously people last year kind of like coming into the summer, like Chelsea spent a lot of money and they're kind of writing off some of the signings that they have, but a lot of the signings like Havertz is still only 21 years of age, Werner's still only 24. So there's a lot of time, there's a lot of value in those players. Dean Fury also, he rates Alonso highly in the formation that we have. Like I said, I just don't think there's many players better in England at playing that left wing back role than Alonso. Um, as much as he lacks kind of playing in the forward back at left back, defensively he can be quite poor. He's a killer left wing back. He can deal damage to teams. Also, good evening, Rachel. Good to have you on. Good to have you in the comments again. Always there. So then, obviously, kind of the second position I think for Chelsea really that they could strengthen is the centre midfield role. If you asked me this in the summer, I think the centre mid role was the one that we would need to strengthen the most. Obviously, that was before kind of like when Werner came in. I thought maybe he might have played as a 9, but he's not going to be a 9 really. He's going to be playing off the striker, I think. So I think in that pivot role, we need something else in the centre mid role. We have good players there. I rate Jorginho. Obviously, he doesn't have the legs. I do rate him though against opponents. He suits some teams. Kovacic is an unbelievable player. Kante, obviously, we've seen what he done against Atletico again. A lot of people wrote him off thinking he was finished, and he's far from it. I just think in a pivot, if you're going to play him and obviously if Kovacic there, I think the one thing that we're lacking is a powerhouse, kind of like a Michael Essien in midfield. Obviously, number one target, most Chelsea fans would agree, is Declan Rice from West Ham. I think he'd sit us down to the ground. He has everything that Chelsea need. Obviously, they've a young side now. So, like Declan Rice, what he brings to the team is he's very good leadership characteristics. Not only is he a good footballer, he's very good defensively, very solid on the ball, good ball carrier, but he also brings that leadership to the side that Chelsea may need. Right at the moment, we really kind of only have like Azpilicueta is a very very good captain, but he's not kind of your loud leader on the field. We have Thiago Silva for that, and I suppose Mount can kind of grow into that role, but Rice brings that to the team. I think he should be target number one. And obviously, when Lampard left, a lot of those rumours kind of died. But from what I've been hearing, he's still very much on Chelsea's agenda, and he's really impressed the scouts lately. But I still think that the catalyst for a move, what I've been hearing actually as well, the catalyst for a move for Rice is if one of the Manchester clubs make a move for him in the summer, which is terrible to say because Chelsea should be all over because his ability, they should be all over his ability and his leadership. But if it takes a Manchester club to come in from for us to go from, I just don't think that's right. But from what I've been hearing, that's the case. But I still believe that Declan Rice is going to end up a Chelsea player. At some point in time, which I think will be the summer. Obviously, we touched on Tammy kind of leaving in the summer. One of his big admirers are West Ham. And I believe, obviously, if Tammy is okay with going to West Ham, they've been performing well this year. They could have Europa League football next season. If they're that interested in throw him in a deal for Declan Rice with money, obviously, but it'll be good for both parties because if Tammy goes there, he's going to bang in goals. We all know that West Ham are lacking a striker this year. They have Antonio there, who's not a natural striker, but if Tammy goes there, I think he'll bang in goals, and Chelsea also get Rice in return, which is exactly what we need. Also in the comments, good evening, William. Another podcast regular there. Good to have you in the comments again. And then from Michael Morrissey, then he's asking, do I think Liverpool will spend some money in the summer? I don't, because Liverpool are broke. They're not broke, but they don't have the spending power. And even if they did have the money, I just don't think their board operates in a way that they're going to be splashing out big money. Obviously, they paid 70 for Van Dijk and 60 something for Addison, but that was off the back of the money they got for Coutinho. I just think that Liverpool and Klopp, both of them are kind of the professionals that they'll bring in players for the right price, but they'll improve them. You look what Klopp has done with Salah and like even Mane there, and Van Dijk is obviously was a good player that not many people recognised before he went to Liverpool, but Klopp makes all these players better, and I just don't think Liverpool are going to be a club that's going to be spending big in the summer at all. And just to kind of touch on what Dean said there, it's very, very true. It's highly unlikely that Liverpool are going to get Champions League at this stage. Obviously, they can put a bit of form together, but they're 5 points behind us in fourth. I think that's a bit of a gap to close come like the last kind of 9-10 games of the season. So I think that'll damage Liverpool in the summer as well. I don't think you'll have any Haalands or Mbappe's coming to Liverpool unless that GoFundMe that you put together kind of works. But no, I think it's going to be more kind of extending contracts to players that are already there, and bringing in your few players then that are kind of that Klopp may improve in the summer, but you have to build out your squad because Liverpool's 11 is unbelievable. When they have a fully fit squad, they probably the best 11 in the league, maybe apart from City, maybe. But their bench is just shocking, so they need to improve on that. Going into the new season, especially with the way COVID has kind of had everything. We had a this year we're all flat out. All the clubs playing football is non-stop, so like a lot of injuries are going to be picked up. So Liverpool need to kind of build on that in the summer, I think. Um, the second kind of target kind of that Chelsea have been linked with midfield if Rice is not possible, because we all know that that United and City are kind of on Rice as well. Is forgive me now if I say his name wrong because it's hard to pronounce, but Aurélien Tchouameni. He plays for Monaco, a very good young player. He reminds me of Michael Essien. Is an absolute powerhouse. He's good on the ball, moves it well. He's good position and the whole lot. I watched him a good few times now since the start of the season. But yeah, he's a very, very good player and someone if we didn't get Rice that I'd actually be happy enough with. Kind of sort of an unknown quantity, but I think he could definitely do a job coming from the same league that SCN actually did come from as well. I think he could do a very good job here, and he's kind of that's what we're lacking. Like I said before, we're talking about the centre mids. We need that kind of powerhouse in midfield. Just to touch on what William said here, just before I go away from Liverpool, he thinks that they're going to sell one of Mane and Salah, and they're going to use that to buy good quality players. True, I could see Salah leaving with obviously how it's been viewed, kind of like when you see in the matches how he's kind of reacted to stuff, and he's kind of spoke before about wanting to kind of have new challenges and stuff. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see Salah go. I think Liverpool would be mad to leave Mane go. Unbelievable player, but if Salah goes, they might bring in a couple of players. But I don't think that they'll sell Salah and bring in one player to replace him, which a lot of clubs don't do that, and it's a problem. Like you'll see when Spurs sold Bale, they spent the money, they spread it out. I think you're nearly better off just paying the money to bring in one top quality player and replace him. But I don't think Liverpool will do that. I think they'll if Salah goes, they will bring a few in, but you won't have your kind of your Mbappe or Haaland quality. But they'll bring in players that Klopp could improve and could bring not to there, because I think Haaland and Mbappe are generation. I think they're the two players who are going to be the Ronaldo and Messi of this era. I don't think anyone's going to really touch them over the next kind of 10 years. And then the third option, really, Chelsea have been linked with, but it's unlikely because of how big of a kind of name he is Eduardo Camavinga. Obviously, it's kind of a player or a name that's going to be destined for Real Madrid or Barcelona in a couple of years. He's only 18, top quality player, already scored for France as well. The France senior team made his debut. Absolutely fantastic player. He'd be good in the pivot. He's more of a box-to-box player than a DM, but he has all the qualities there to be one of the best centre mids in the world for the next 10 years. Absolute quality player, and played against us last year as well, in the Champions League. And obviously, there's a big difference between Chelsea and Rennes. But he played decent as well. But like you can see him playing, I know it's not the French league, but you've seen him playing there, and he's been quality in 90 games. I've seen him even with France as well. Touch on Mikey, who's a Liverpool fan. He thinks Firmino and Wijnaldum will go. Wijnaldum's definitely out the door, judging by it going on a free. His contract's up, so you're not going to get any money for him. But I agree, Firmino should go. Obviously, he's had some great years and kind of filled in the other spot in the front three. Obviously, Salah and Mane get most of the credit, but Firmino's have very good years. But this year, he's been pretty poor, apart from the one or two games. And I think if you're going to be kind of targeting a spot in that front three to kind of replace or refresh, it has to be that kind of centre forward role. Maybe Jota can fill in there, and you spend the money elsewhere. But I think it's a position that you need to upgrade on. And then also to Jamie, that the Chelsea are linked to Aguero. I touched on that at the start. Kind of he'd be the second target if we didn't get Haaland. I'd be happy with Aguero. If we can't get either of those, there's no one really I'd be kind of happy with. That's realistic. We're not going to get Lautaro Martinez. We're not going to get Lukaku. We're not going to get Harry Kane. So it's either Haaland, Aguero, or nothing for Chelsea, I think, this summer. Jamie also thinks Haaland is going to end up at United. If the United board would spend the money on Haaland, I wouldn't rule United out at all. Obviously, United are a massive club, but I just, like I touched on earlier, I just don't think United are going to splash £120 million on Haaland and just have a striker in the summer. I think that they have other issues as well, like their CDM, and CDM is the biggest issue and centre back. But I do think they're going to get Sancho and maybe a CDM there, but we'll see about the centre back. But yeah, I just think if you spend the money on Haaland, it's a good shout. But I just don't think you will. Don't think United have them in and spend the money. Centre mid's kind of exiting Chelsea, I suppose. There's a lot of talk of Jorginho leaving. Sarri made up with, I can't pronounce his name, but the Napoli owner De Laurentiis. They made up supposedly Sarri could be back in there in the summer, and if so, he'd be very interested in bringing Jorginho back over. Like I said earlier, I rate Jorginho, but if we got a decent offer for him, I'd let him go, definitely. I just maybe his physical attributes doesn't suit the Premier League. Like, he's not fast, he's not strong, but he's definitely quality footballer that's rated very highly in Italy and someone you definitely get money for. Then you have a couple of players come back from loan. Loftus-Cheek, who was probably my favourite ever player to come through the youth system at Chelsea. Obviously, he's a top quality player, but at this stage of his career, it's hard to see him getting back into Chelsea unless he gets a chance in pre-season, I suppose, or you'll probably see him back out on loan next year, maybe, because Chelsea still hold hope in Loftus-Cheek that he can get back to that level he was at before he got the injury. But I suppose we'll probably see him go on loan rather than a sale. And I think Ross Barkley will be sold in the summer as well. If Villa want to buy him is another thing, but I think definitely you'll find a buyer in the Premier League, because Barkley can be quality on his day. He's just very inconsistent. That's the problem with Barkley, and it's something that he has to improve on. I suppose the next kind of position Chelsea could improve on massively is centre back. But the only thing about centre back is, who do you get? Like, there's not many options out there. So obviously my first choice, any of the boys that know me, I love Jose Jimenez from Atletico. I think he's a great player. He kind of brings you everything. He's a good footballer, very good on the ball. He's an absolute warrior, good defender as well. He's one of the best defenders in the world, to be honest, for me. And he's a leader. That's another thing he brings. So it's like I said with Declan Rice, he brings those qualities to the club, and I think Jimenez is bringing those exact same things. The only kind of cons with Jimenez really is his injury record isn't great, and he also has an 120 million euro release clause with Atletico, and they're adamant that you have to pay the 120 million to get him. So that's another kind of sticking point with Jimenez. But he's shared his admiration for Chelsea last season. We thought we were going to get him last summer, but obviously we spent so much in the other positions really that it was a no-go for us. But yeah, no, Jimenez would be my number one choice, to be honest with you. Other names that have been linked with, obviously Upamecano went to Munich, who I think is very overrated anyway. I think he wouldn't be an improvement on Zuma even. Kind of the same kind of player. Big, very physical, fast, but I think he has a mistake in him. But I think Zuma is better than Upamecano, so I'm kind of happy we dodged that bullet, really. Another name then been linked is Niklas Süle from Bayern Munich. Obviously has experience there, good international experience. Still only 24, I believe. Fast player, strong. He's not very agile, and to be honest, when he's turning, but he is quick. He deceives people. A lot of people think, oh, he's big, strong, he has to be slow, but he's played right back plenty of times. He has the speed to get up and down the field. He would be another decent option. Wouldn't be someone that I'd be breaking the bank, or if we missed out on him, that I'd be very disappointed with. But he's a very, very good player, and maybe under Tuchel he could do well. Maybe Tuchel will know him well. The only kind of issues with him really again is injury record. Before last season he was grand, but this season or last season he obviously picked up an injury and he was out for most of the year, and it's kind of been playing at him since. But if he can kind of get over that injury record, maybe he'll be a solid player to bring in. Just to talk on kind of Jamie's points there in the comments. He thinks United need a centre back, a striker, a right wing, and a CDM. Maybe two players at most. I think definitely your most pressing issue really is CDM. 100%. You have two players playing there right now, Fred and McTominay in a pivot. Both of them have their own qualities, but I think if you brought in one good CDM, he could do both of their jobs in one. It could free up space for a more attacking player to fit into the lineup. Definitely Declan Rice would do a job there. Indeed, he would probably do a job there, albeit he's very expensive. But I just think it's your biggest issue. CDM, and it hasn't been looked at in a few years. Obviously, you brought Matic in from Chelsea, but like Matic can't play 38 games a season now. So you need to bring someone in there, which I think should be your biggest target this summer. I do think the first sign you will make is the right wing. I do think you'll get Sancho after the Euros. Um, you'll get Sancho and you'll get a CDM. I'm not quite sure on a striker, depending on what happens with Martial really, and with Greenwood. Greenwood might kind of want to move into that number 9 role, which I think he's a very good shout to play there. For future for United, he's going to be a top player, I think. And then the centre back, obviously, are linked with centre backs, but we'll see what United spend in the summer and who they buy. A comment there from Keane, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I know Keane and Shane Dowley are Loftus-Cheek haters because Pogba has pictures of him on his bedroom wall. The two boys don't like that Loftus-Cheek is a superior player, you know, so they have to slander him the whole time. But yeah, Jamie has another shout in there. Ben Godfrey is a good shout for a bigger club. I actually like Ben Godfrey. Not quite sure if he's exactly what we need right now, but he is a very good player. I think kind of more your mid-table clubs, your smaller clubs like Arsenal or Spurs, kind of for Godfrey, he would be so suitable. Like I think he'd be a very good player. Obviously, Arsenal kind of need a centre back. For me, they need another centre back in the summer. I really rate Gabriel, but I think they could do it another centre back in beside him. Pablo Mari obviously has good games this year, but he doesn't do it for me. Luis is a very good option to have in around the squad for his experience and what he'll bring to the squad. I think Luis should be kept there, and I don't rate Callum Chambers either. So I think Arsenal couldn't do much better than buying a centre back in the summer. Godfrey would be a good shout for them. Spurs possibly need to send it back in the summer as well, but from talking to Steve the other day, and I think Anderson from Fulham, who Spurs had before, I believe, would be a very good shout. Just touching the comment there from Ashley William, who was an Arsenal fan. He said Saliba will be back in the summer. I actually forgot about Saliba. I do really like Saliba. Good player. I'm just wondering, will Arsenal take him back? Will he be back in? Not even that to do with what happened before he left, but kind of like, does Arteta rate him? Why didn't he kind of get the chance this year, or did he need? Was it someone in his family was sick or something that he needed to go out and loan? I think actually I heard there a while ago, but Saliba would be a very good option to have back there. It's not a bad shout. Actually, William, to be fair, I forgot about him. Kind of the third option really for Chelsea, kind of centre back, I suppose, is Ibrahim Konate, who they've been linked with from Leipzig, who was Upamecano's partner there this year and previous years as well. But he has a cheap enough release clause. I believe it's £38 million. Very good player. I actually rate him more highly than Upamecano, but the only thing is, which is actually a common theme between the three centre backs I mentioned, is all three have their injury woes, like injury problems. But obviously, we've seen players come to Chelsea before that have had these problems. Like Chelsea's medical team seem to be doing a fairly good job. When they come to Chelsea, they don't really have these injury issues. You see the same again with Eden Hazard. Like he's at Chelsea for many seasons, played 38 games a year, most seasons, getting kicked around the place. Wasn't like rightly protected by referees, and he missed 5 games over all that time. And he's gone to Madrid now, and a year and a half he's missed 50 something games. So like the Chelsea medical staff must be doing something right. So if they can get one of those players in and keep their injuries to a minimum, it wouldn't be a bad shout. But Konate, that's my biggest issue with him, is the injury record, like, and whether he can kind of overcome that. But he is a very good player. The fourth option, which is the one that I'd actually take going into the summer, is if we can get Tomori back, or if we can promote Mark Guéhi, who's out on loan with Swansea. Now, the reason I'm thinking this is because, look, if Chelsea can pull it out of the bag and land Haaland 120 million, they're not going to spend 100 million on Jimenez. They're not going to be spending 40 or 50 million in the centre half. So if it meant getting Haaland, I'd give up the centre back and I'd try and promote one of the lads, or bring back Tomori. Like, especially if you're going to stick to that 3 at the back. I think a 3 at the back, and I think if Reece James can kind of pull in on Azpilicueta's position there, the right centre back, that's going to be a position covered. And Reece James has all the attributes to play there. That kind of position under Tuchel's system, you have to be comfortable on the ball and be able to bring it forward. You get plenty of forward runs out of that position, and James is obviously a tank at the back as well, very solid. For me, I'd try and bring back Tomori then, or promote Guéhi, and stick with the 3 at the back next season, because what's not broke, why would you fix it? Like, so I'd rather try and splash the cash in a CDM or centre mid and a striker. Then obviously kind of the last position, I don't think really needs strengthening, but I have to touch on it because kind of a bit of news came out today when at Chelsea is the goalkeeper position. Um, so basically the Donnarumma, the Chelsea move is kind of gathering a bit of pace now. Donnarumma is out of contract in the summer at Milan. I think he's potential to be the best keeper in the world for the next 10, 15 seasons. He's that good. He's world class. And whilst I really, really like Mendy. Like you can't turn down an upgrade in Donnarumma. He's literally a game changer. Like I think what Haaland is to strikers, I think Donnarumma can be to goalkeepers. But anyway, he rejected another Milan contract today. I think they're a long way off in their valuations, and from what I've been hearing, from Dan McCarthy and Simon Phillips reports, who are fairly reliable, is that Chelsea have put that contract offer on the table to Donnarumma, exactly what Raiola wanted. I think it's 10.5 million a season. So that's on the table there. PSG are obviously in from too, but today now of all days is starting to gather pace just right before the pod, so I had to mention that. So if we could get a Donnarumma in there for free in the summer, I think it'd be a shrewd signing. It would take, obviously Mendy's been unbelievable this year, really really good goalkeeper, but Donnarumma takes that goalkeeper position to the next level. And if you can kind of keep him there for a good 10 years, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world for 10 years to come. Like, so yeah, basically to recap on the Chelsea signs, if I could kind of have the four positions covered in the summer, I'd be going Haaland, Declan Rice, Jimenez, Donnarumma. But we all know like we're not going to spend that money in all of those. So I'd like Haaland, Rice, and I'd like Donnarumma in there as well. Three signings there, I think would have us as title challengers next year. Us up there with City, and obviously United didn't build in the summer, but they're still there and thereabouts. So you can never really write them off. But I don't think I ever see him win the league on the roll. So I think if Chelsea can add those players next year, they'll be fighting Tottenham all the way. Realistically, what I could see happening is it's hard to say with Haaland because I think Abramovich and Chelsea are going to go all out for him. I'm still confident that we're going to get him if he moves in the summer. But the big issue is it's 120 million, so like it's not a given. He has so many options in the summer. There's going to be so many clubs in for him. So like if we don't bring in the top striker, I think next year could be tough again because it's exactly what we're missing. You can see it on the Tuchel. We're creating a lot, but we're not scoring. But if we can bring in a Haaland or even an Aguero, I think Tammy goes in the summer, and I think you could have a top striker in. Tammy could be going to West Ham as part of the Rice deal. You could get Rice in there. Forget about the centre back because there's not many good options really. Apart from Jimenez is going to cost a bomb, and I can't see Chelsea splashing that as well as a striker in the centre mid and Donnarumma in the summer, and that'll turn us into title challengers completely. We should have been challenging this year, to be honest, but it was a bit of a write off of the season at the start, and we're kind of making up ground now. But hopefully, kind of going into the summer now, if we build on what we built this summer, we'll be there and thereabouts, especially top of the Premier League and kind of Champions League again. We good run this season. We can keep going in the Champions League as well, so we build on that next season. Just to touch on John Dawson's comment there, saying Bale used Tottenham as a gym, which is true. I think obviously, kind of he has to say it if he's under contract at Madrid that he's going back there. But I just think the timing kind of it is very disrespectful and stuff. I think if you say it in the summer when you're kind of on the way back to Madrid, people think, oh, right, Madrid wanted him back and kind of he has to be going back there. But to say it now with some of the season left and kind of coming up to the Euros, I think it's very disrespectful, and kind of it's given a lot of fans ammunition kind of to have a dig at Spurs. Obviously, kind of like it might have been the plan from the start to kind of get him to come over here and he can get his fitness for the Euros and stuff. But like you can see how much he hated it at Madrid. I just don't see why he'd want to kind of go back there if he had an option to kind of stay out for another year. So basically, yeah, I think he's used Tottenham, and if he balled for the whole year and got him a top four spot and kind of got him a cup, you could say fuck it. He used it, so what? We got trophies out of it. We got a top four finish out of it, but he didn't kick a ball for half the year. He's starting to come into form the last couple of weeks, so it's I don't know. It hasn't really worked out for Spurs really there on that one, but maybe he can find to a top four finish by the end of the year. Who knows? They're not too far behind us in fourth, so if he can do that, maybe it'd be kind of a parting gift from when he goes back to Madrid, back to a real club like. Dean Fury then also thinks whoever gets Haaland wins the league. I totally agree with this. I think he's the game changer. what I was thinking of last night, kind of playing a bit of FIFA. I'm not comparing him because no one touches Sir Alex. He's the greatest of all time. But if City got Haaland, I'd nearly compare Guardiola and Haaland at City to Ferguson and Ronaldo at United. Like, who's going to stop them, really? United fucking that year won the Champions League, won the league. Kind of, it was unbelievable. Like, Ronaldo was best player in the Premier League at the time, and you had Ferguson was the best manager. I think City would have that if they got Haaland. They'd have Guardiola and Haaland there. I don't think there'd be any stopping them, to be honest, for the next 2 or 3 years if they got Haaland in. It's kind of the way I'm looking at it now with the team City have. I'm thinking, right, Guardiola stays for another 2 or 3 years. They're going to be top. If Guardiola leaves after the 2 or 3 years, depending on who they get in, you might have a bit of space there to catch him, and kind of City be kind of fighting for top 4 rather than winning titles again. But if they bring Haaland in now, even if Guardiola leaves in 2 or 3 years' time, like, who's going to topple him when you have Haaland there and you have De Bruyne? Obviously the squad that they have, the options is insane. Like, so basically, John said, "What do you think about the above options?" So I'm guessing that's going to be about. Is it about Ben Godfrey and? Is that about Ben Godfrey and who else did we mention, John? If you want to come back again there, John, actually kind of see, let me know what options I can discuss them there about Spurs. I'm not quite sure. I think we're on about Ben Godfrey there, but if you want to drop a comment there, work away, and I'll come back to it then. But yeah, kind of those positions I think Chelsea really could do with strengthening in the summer. Just to move on then, obviously, to the other London club. So basically, John said the players from Norwich. So I suppose when you're on with Norwich, Buendia and that, Ben Godfrey, who came from Norwich, I think went to Everton. Ben Godfrey would be a very, very good option, I think, for Spurs as centre back. Obviously, wouldn't be an avid Spurs follower and their squad and stuff, and kind of knowing what the ins and outs of Spurs. But from talking to Steve, really, he would really like a centre back in the summer. He's talked about Yaki Anderson for Fulham, who Spurs had before. He's an option there. But yeah, so basically, kind of from Norwich, I suppose, now with Buendia then in Bale's position. Very, very solid player, Buendia. How he wasn't bought in the Premier League this year, I don't know. How he spent the whole year in the Championship is beyond me. Arsenal were obviously linked with him in January. Didn't go through. I think Norwich wanted a bit too much money from him. They wanted the 30 to 40 million mark. But if Spurs were to bring him in, he'd be a very good player. But I just don't think he'd be a Bale replacement, because I read today the Bologna director, they're interested in Lamela, bringing him back to Italy. So if Lamela moves on to Bologna now, I suppose Buendia will be a good replacement for him. I just don't think he'd be a good starter for Spurs. Then also from John, which one would you choose? So Todd Cantwell or Buendia? I like Todd Cantwell. He's a good workhorse. Buendia is the same, very good player, but I don't know. I just don't think either one of them are kind of start material for Spurs. Kind of a club kind of that's supposed to be challenging for the top 6, kind of top 4, top 6. But I think they are Premier League material, so they should be signed up in the Premier League. I suppose I was going to touch on Arsenal and Spurs there, maybe a small bit of West Ham. I suppose I better stick with Spurs if we're on them there. So like kind of the big question, I suppose, you can ask if you're a Spurs fan or talking about Spurs going into the summer, into the transfer market, is Jose still going to be there? Personally, I don't think he's going to be there. I think that loss in the Europa League is the final nail in the coffin. I think he's a goner after that. I've never seen a Mourinho team do that. Obviously, he's not the same Mourinho as he was years ago, but he still has that name, and he still has the potential to kind of obviously get you further in the Europa League than what they've gone. And I've never seen that been done to Mourinho before. I just think some of the players have given in some of the performance, like especially in the Spurs and Chelsea game, when Chelsea won 1-0, have been disgraceful. Like players walked around the field against Chelsea and It was very, very poor, and I just think he'll be gone this summer. Who would he get in is another thing. Obviously, Nagelsmann will be our first choice, big name, good attacking manager. Whether he comes is another thing, or whether you go for like someone like a Graham Potter who has done a very, very good job at Norwich, but whether he can take that step up is, or not Norwich, at Brighton, whether he can take that step up is another thing. Um, so kind of like when you're talking about Spurs, I suppose Mourinho, and then the big thing is to try and keep hold of Harry Kane. Obviously, David Ornstein kind of came out this week and said that he heard from the camp that Kane could be pushed to leave in the summer. And then a couple of days later came back out and said he's not sure whether Bale or Kane is ever going to leave Spurs. I think personally he could want to leave, could want to push to get trophies, but obviously when he came back out again and said he doesn't think he's ever going to leave Spurs, I think that's more down to what Spurs are going to demand from him and who's going to pay that money from him. I don't think anyone really is going to pay, if you're going to look for the 140, 150 million mark. You might get the 120 from him because he's best striker in the Premier League. I think he's the second best striker in the world, but I think it's more down to the money, and no one's going to be able to bring him in. That's the main reason why he's going to stay as far as I think. So obviously Bale looks like he's going to go back to Madrid. Lamela could be going back to Italy. You're going to be kind of light on winger options and attacking options in the summer. So like, who are you going to be kind of bringing in? It's unsure whether Vinicius is going to stay past the summer either. He's only on loan. That's another thing. You might be kind of seeing the end of maybe Sissoko, who has been rumoured to be leaving as well. Kind of what options could you be bringing in, really? Obviously, I touched on earlier, Steve was talking about Anderson, the centre-back for Fulham, who came from Spurs. He looks to be very, very solid this season for Fulham since he's come into the team. He might be a bad option to get a centre-back there. Obviously, we talked earlier about other centre-back options like Ben Godfrey wouldn't be a bad show for Spurs. Obviously, he cost a fair bit of money, English tax, would cause him to cost a fair bit of money, but it wouldn't be a bad shout again. Obviously, we talked about Sissoko going. I was thinking myself, actually, finding in the comments, kind of, there's no speculation about this, but if Sissoko goes, I think a very good option for Spurs could be Bissouma from Brighton, to bring him in. Obviously, very, very good centre mid. They're not like for like him and Sissoko, but he can do what Sissoko does, and he's a better ball player. I think he'd be good, very good options. Then obviously, kind of around about Bale and that leaving, I suppose Spurs, as I mentioned earlier, Spurs have been linked with Paulo Dybala. Another good attacking option that they can bring in, a left-footed player. Could be that kind of player that they're missing from that forward three. Obviously, if Son and Kane, who are top class, Dybala could fit in on that right side, could be the difference maker in that front three. Obviously, Steve has kind of touched on before on pods that most of the top clubs in England have a front three. Spurs have a front two, really, essentially, when they're playing, when Bale isn't on form. Like, so I think Dybala could be a good option there, really. Obviously, if Vinicius goes, Spurs, who they were linked with last summer, who they be going back in for, is Danny Ings, maybe. Obviously, top striker, and kind of a player that you wouldn't really think would want to play second fiddle, but with kind of the injury record he has, and kind of Kane has picked up a few injuries the last couple of years, I think both of them are guaranteed very decent amount of game time. Like, obviously, Spurs is going to be first choice, or Kane's going to be first choice, because there's no one going to displace him. But I think with both of those, kind of, you can't be playing them week in, week out all the time. So I think they're going to get a fair share of games next season. I think Danny Ings will be a very good shout for Spurs. Then also, I suppose, when you're on about kind of Lamela and that leaving, who Spurs have linked to a big time for a couple of months, who I really, really rate is Marcel Sabitzer from Leipzig, Austrian international, very, very good player. Seen before, the Spurs have been linked with like a 45 million move for him. Obviously, he's been at Leipzig years now. Kind of, he's been there and done it with him. Might he look to move on in the summer? If Nagelsmann comes to Spurs, would he look to bring Sabitzer with him? Would be a very good show for Spurs. Very good player to bring into the fold, I think. And then kind of the last one, I suppose, in Spurs to touch on is the goalkeeper position, because looks like Lloris is definitely off in the summer. Contract's up. Looks like he's going to go back to France, maybe to PSG, which I don't really kind of like blame. He's given a lot of years to Spurs, a lot of very good years, captain for years, and maybe he's time to move back home at 35 years of age, kind of get another, his last big kind of payday in, and get a couple of league titles over, because it's something he's certainly not getting with Spurs. So wouldn't be a bad shout for him to go to PSG. And then from kind of reading through reports today, I suppose the biggest name kind of linked with Spurs to replace Lloris going through the tabloids today was Mike Moynihan from Lille. Seen him playing against Chelsea 2 seasons, first season back in last season. Went back in with Lampard into the Champions League, played against Lille, and he was very, very good. Linked with Chelsea before Mendy for a long while. I think he's a top goalkeeper, and someone Spurs could look to bring in to replace Lloris. He'd be a very good option there. He's good in the air, good at the ball at his feet as well, and he's a decent shot stopper. So if he's not too expensive, you could see Spurs bringing him in. Um, I suppose that's all the kind of issues as far as, like I said, kind of the biggest issues is Jose going to stay and is Kane going to stay. So I suppose they're the two kind of things that you want to tie down first if you're a Spurs. Obviously Kane first, because Kane is kind of the biggest thing in the club, really, to be honest with you. If you had Kane and any of the other kind of top, like Chelsea, City, United, I think you get a league title out of him. Definitely, he makes that difference. He's like a Haaland level striker, but he's better than Haaland at the moment. I think Haaland will become better, but at the moment, only Lewandowski is better than Kane in Europe, I think. So that's kind of touching on Spurs, I suppose. It's really dependent on whether they go out and spend big again. Like they spent a bit of money last summer, but before that, it's kind of you'd be looking at their kind of spend as kind of just below kind of like the big kind of three, I suppose, three big spenders in England. And whether they kind of follow up on last summer or whether they're kind of the money is there or not, you just don't know. Then I suppose to touch on kind of we'll go down the ladder, so we'll go like Chelsea, Spurs, and then to move the camera down there, Arsenal, I suppose, next level. We'll have talking on Arsenal. Like the first thing we kind of wondering is the money there. Look, I'll be taking the piss, I know, and Arsenal have been poor the last couple of years, but they're still a big club, still a decent sized club, and they have their history there with your Henrys and your Vieiras and the unbeatable season and stuff, but the Invincibles and that. They certainly, maybe not anymore for the top players like Haaland, they probably don't have the pull, but they have the pull for a lot of players, and you're just kind of wondering, I suppose, is the money there in the summer? Personally, I don't think they're going to sell Aubameyang, but if I was in their position, I would. I think the contract in the summer killed them. Any motivation they had, I think, is just kind of it kind of went out the window, and you can see that with his performances this year. I think if you can get good money for him, you cash in on him. Bring in a kind of if you can bring in a solid replacement for him, there's plenty out there, I think. I suppose kind of one of the pressing issues for Arsenal in the summer, I think, and from the games I've watched, is to keep hold of Odegaard. I really, really rate him. I think he could be one of the best attacking midfielders in England if he's there for a couple of years. He's endless talent, like such a good player. But that'll be one of the big issues in the summer now, is trying to keep hold of Odegaard, and whether they can do that or not. Because look, like I said, he's a top player. He's going to have plenty of options in the summer. I think a lot of his kind of future at Madrid depends on whether Zidane stays past the summer. If Zidane stays there, he'll probably move on. But if Zidane goes, there's a possibility he could be brought back into the fold at Madrid. And he's good enough, definitely good enough. And if Arsenal can keep hold of him, it's an absolute steal. There should be a lot of top clubs in Europe after him. That's the big problem. Like, if they all come in the summer, if they come knocking, some of the bigger clubs, is he going to stay at Arsenal, where he will be probably the star man next season, I think, play a lot of football, or does he want to try and go to a different club and see it in a different way? Another one that I was kind of thinking of, I think Arsenal could do with another centre mid. I think I really rate Partey as well. Really rate him. I have my problems with Xhaka. He's a good player. Kind of, I don't know. He's a good player, but I just think he's a lot of mistakes in him, and I'm not sure if he has the legs either. I'm wondering, will Guendouzi come back from loan? I think he's a solid player. Obviously, he had his issues there, but watched him a few times in the Bundesliga this year, and I think he's a very, very good player, good young player. He's kind of tenacious, good in the tackle. He has that hunger to win the ball back for you, and I think he has the ability to play football as well. So if you have him from deep, kind of supplying the likes of Odegaard, and I think Pepe could come good for Arsenal as well. But if you have like a Guendouzi and Partey kind of deeper, getting that ball, they can bring it forward to that forward line. Just to touch on Williams' comment there, he's an Arsenal fan. Obviously, he thinks keep Odegaard. You need a new clinical striker, a new right back after selling Bellerin, and a backup left back is what you need. And yeah, definitely, Xhaka can definitely be a squad player. I don't think he's a bad player. He's not captain of Switzerland. Well, Switzerland for no reason. Um, like you said, he's a squad player more than that. And I just think if you're going to be pushing, if you want to be kind of pushing for top four next season, I don't think Xhaka can be starter. Obviously, against some of the clubs, you can bring him in to give like Partey and that a rest. But I think I think a new centre mid in the summer would be very good. You think Guendouzi is off? To be honest with you, I don't know much about kind of the situation at Arsenal with Guendouzi, but I do think he has the quality. But if Arteta doesn't rate him, he's going to be gone. Um, Obviously last summer, one of my favourite players Arsenal nearly got is Hussam Moore for Lyon. Very, very good player. Remains to be seen now whether Arsenal go back in from this summer or not. I think he'd be stupid not to. If there's an open run there at him, Arsenal should be all over it. 45 million pounds would be an absolute steal, especially with the kind of money problems in France this season. You can see a kind of Camavinga might be on the go in that as well. They're having wicked money trouble over there. So I think if Arsenal can snip up any midfielder, it'd be him I'd be going for. He'd be a very, very good player. Then Daniel Levinson, then he said Arsenal are dreadful. They wanted the money to buy him, and their issues at the back. Leno's not good enough. Their best keeper now plays for Villa. Bellerin Suarez is not good enough. I do like Leno. I think he's a solid keeper. I do think Martinez is better. Martinez is one of the best keepers in England. Such a good. I thought it could have been just kind of a spell at the end of last season where he was so good, but he's carried that form into Villa again this year, and I think he's possibly the signing of the summer. Last year he's right up there, top keeper. But I do like Leno. I don't think he's terrible. I think if you just spend the money, I think he'd be other positions to be kind of prioritising over a goalkeeper. I agree with the right back. I don't think they'll have the money either, like you said, to be splashing big money. I do agree with the right back situation. I think that Bellerin will go, and from kind of reading through stuff today, who Arsenal have been linked with, and Spurs have been linked as well. Actually, seen him play a couple of times, and he's a decent player. Is Emerson for Real Betis, Brazilian international. He's only 23 years old. Played a wealth of football with Betis, plenty of experience. But Arsenal and Spurs have been linked with him, which I think he'd be a very good player to bring in. Bellerin could go back to Barcelona maybe or PSG. Suarez, I suppose. Look, you get what you pay for him. You got him for free. He'll do a job for you, and he's not going to be anything special, but he'll do a job for you. He'll fill in, I suppose. He's a good option to have there, kind of as a sub or kind of reserve to bring in cup games or against kind of the supposed lesser teams. Also, Daniel thinks Luiz isn't good enough. Don't think he's good enough to start myself, to be honest, but I think he'd be a breath of fresh air to have around the squad. Kind of what he brings, a bit of experience, and he'll have kind of seen it at Chelsea. Obviously, I'm a Chelsea fan, seen it there before. He can bring good vibes to the training ground and the team, and he might offer that experience that's if you bring in a new centre back that they mightn't have. Or obviously Gabriel's only 2021, he might need kind of that mentor and that guidance there, and I think Luiz will be fairly decent. But I definitely agree he isn't good enough to start 100% at Arsenal, but that remains to be seen now what they do in that position in the summer. So I just think, obviously, I touched on myself. I think they could do well to get a centre back in the summer, right back to replace Bellerin, centre mid like I touched on, and then maybe a winger or a striker if Aubameyang goes. And one player that I've really suggested to the lads a couple of times in the group chat that I really, really rate, and he's definitely an unknown quantity, but Arsenal are actually linked with him today as a striker, is Patrick Daka from Red Bull Salzburg. He's only 20 years old, but I've seen him play so many times, and he just gives me that kind of impression looking at him. Like from an eye test, he's going to be a fantastic player. He's so quick, he's powerful. I think he's going to make for a good striker. He can play on the wing as well. I think he'd be a decent signing for Arsenal, especially he wouldn't cost that much. I think he'd be a solid enough replacement for Aubameyang, really. If Aubameyang goes, they get Aubameyang's wages off the wage bill as well. It might help Arsenal a lot. Maybe set up a GoFundMe like Liverpool did for Mbappe, to bring in some of the top players. Daniel touched on Tierney. Yeah, I agree. Tierney is brilliant. Partey is top class. Obviously, getting a bit of a slating this year off rival fans, kind of just trying to say he hasn't lived up to it. But like, I think I think the performance against United in the first 1-0, he was unbelievable. And I think he can reach that bar most weeks if he stays consistent. But whether they bring in someone to kind of partner him in the field or not, that I think he'll be up to his level is another thing. But like you said, Lacazette, Saka, Auba, Odegaard, for me, they're the only players that are good enough for Arsenal in current form at the minute. Auba, definitely good enough. He's the quality. Obviously, when he's on his day, he's probably the best player in the Arsenal squad. But he's just not shown it this season. So I just think that contract ruined him in the summer. And I don't think they're going to get rid of him in the summer because I'm not sure who's going to buy him. But I think you'd be doing well to to get him off the books and sell him and bring in a replacement. Saka, unbelievable player, really good. Odegaard, unbelievable. I'd love Saka at Chelsea, to be honest. I know I slate him kind of to William Blackguard and have a bit of banter and that stuff. The Hudson and I, Saka, Greenwood debate, but Saka is very good, to give credit where it's due. I think touching on John thinks that Arsenal are broke and they'll have to sell the boy, which I think too. Yeah, not even that they're broke, but I do think they will have to sell the boy. Obviously, to spend a bit of money in the summer in the end with Thomas Partey and that, and Nicholas Pepe the summer before 72 million. So they have spent money, but I just still think this summer they will need to sell to buy. Obviously with the whole COVID situation, with no fans in the stadium, no income in that sense. Then Daniel asked how many Arsenal players get into the current top four teams. I suppose if you're looking at the weakest of the top four teams right now, I still obviously if you go on paper, you're probably saying Leicester maybe. Obviously to outperform what anyone would have thought they were going to do at the start of the year. They're fantastic. I still think they will hold on to top four, but I suppose into the Leicester team, you'd probably get maybe Saka get in, maybe. Yeah, Saka get in. I suppose I really rate Gabriel. I think he'd get in beside Fofana and the Leicester team. I think he'd push to start for Chelsea. He'd push. I'm not sure whether he would start over Rudiger in current form, but he'd push for a start, and I think he'd start for United definitely. I do like Maguire, but he needs a good partner there beside him. If he doesn't have the right partner, he's in trouble. Don't really rate Lindelof that highly, and I do rate Bailey, but Boy obviously is the injury record. I think Gabriel would start there. And then obviously City have Diaz and John Stones at the moment. There's no one getting in there. Laporta on the bench. Then from John Dawson, London is claret and blue. If you said any other club, I'd be raging. But look, we'll give West Ham the credit where it's due. They're having some season and they're pushing Chelsea all the way for that top four spot. Can't kind of begrudge them really. It's good to see a club who hasn't been up that high doing well this season. So can't have any fault at West Ham really. Dan William, who's an Arsenal fan, then said Lacazette in the last year of his contract next year. I think we cash in on Lacazette and can see us getting either even Tony or Edward. Edward's actually a decent shout. I think he'll move on from Celtic in the summer. Obviously Leicester are big admirers of him with Brendan Rodgers been there, but Arsenal, they couldn't do much better really than getting in Edward, because obviously there's not many options out there for strikers, unless you're going for your kind of your Haalands or your, I suppose, Lukaku's and that, Lukaku's not even gettable, to be honest. I don't think Inter will keep hold of him, but if you're looking at strikers, Edward won't be a bad shout at all. I think it's 15 million was quoted as well. Surely Arsenal can kind of plug up 50 million even without selling players. That's certainly doable. So I think he'd be a good enough option to bring in. Yeah, like I touched on though, Daka. I think Daka would be a solid option. A lot of people mightn't have seen him playing, but if any you can kind of catch Salzburg playing over the next while, and make sure to give Daka a look in. Then Daniel, then Odegaard looks good, but he's not in the same league with Grealish, Mount, Maddison, etc. If Arsenal don't win the Europa League, surely Arteta has got to go. At the moment, it's too early to say with Odegaard. He's not here long enough. I suppose with the other three, Grealish is next level. I love Mount, and his game has gone up under Tuchel again, and I don't think he's far off Grealish, to be honest with you. I'd rate the other two above Maddison, to be honest, but Odegaard he has to do it for a bit longer in the league. If he stays next year and he does it again, then I think he could be up there with those kind of players. But it's a big ask. So what are your thoughts on your team at the minute? Obviously with Tuchel, I think Chelsea have been phenomenal. Obviously they've been so solid at the back. They haven't scored too much going forward, but that'll eventually come. It's going to click, I think. They're creating the chances, it's not putting them away. And like I touched on kind of at the start, Like they just need that top striker to be able to put those chances away. Havertz played there against Everton as a false nine, played unbelievable, and played against Leeds again. Just kind of lacked that cutting edge. He did, couldn't put the ball in the net really. It's the only kind of downside too. He played very well again, but I think in the summer we're going to need a striker to be putting those chances away. And come next season, if we can bring in a striker, I think we can run City all the way with Tuchel there. I think he's a very, very good manager, one of the best in the league, to be honest with you. But I think, yeah, we'll go far under Tuchel. The team at the moment, I think, on paper, I think we've the second best squad in the league, only behind City. We've seriously underachieved with Lampard. Should have done a lot better. Some of the players we have in there get into most teams in the league. Like I think Thiago Silva gets in, maybe with the exception of City. Silva gets in any team in the league. I think Reece James gets in any team in the league. Maybe City might be a bit of a push if Cancelo's playing right back. But even if not, Cancelo can play left back. Reece James can play right back. I think Kante gets in every team in the league. And then Mount gets in most teams in the league, and a lot of people won't appreciate that, but a lot of people don't watch him week in, week out, and they just see what they see on Twitter and kind of stats and stuff, and they don't realise how good that Mount actually is. He's such a top player, and I've been critical of him in the past. Under Lampard, I thought he can be kind of, his decision making in the final third can be quite wasteful, but I just think he's come on so much under Tuchel even. And then, suppose I can't say it yet because I'm a big Havertz fanboy. Can't say it yet because he hasn't performed well enough for long enough to be able to say he get in most teams. But I think in the future he definitely will get in most teams. But yeah, I just think we seriously underachieved with Lampard though. Then John Dawson said Arsenal, Haaland or Lukaku. You're having a laugh. Obviously, no, I didn't actually mention kind of Arsenal could sign them. I don't think they'd have a fucking chance, but just those kind of strikers, if you're not going for them types of strikers nowadays, there's not many kind of good options or kind of proven options that you can get apart from those. Then Daniel then said, I'm a United fan, but a big fan of Mount. He links everything for you boys. You need a centre forward for me. What about Ings or Watkins? Danny Ings, very, very good striker. I would take him, but I just wouldn't have him as a starting striker. I just don't, I think the jury is out still whether he would be like a 25, 30 goal a season striker in a top team. I don't know if we'd win a league title with him, but I'd rather just kind of go all out for a Haaland or whatever. And if you can't get a Maguire on a free transfer kind of in the summer, will be a sure sign, I think. But yeah, there's not that many options out there. But Ings and Watkins are both very good players, and I think a lot of clubs will be doing well to bring one of those in the summer. Then you also think that James doesn't get in front of Wan-Bissaka. I think James is a blend of both of them. I think Trent is unbelievable going forward. Wan-Bissaka is unbelievable at defending, but I think James does both very, very well. I just think that in the kind of modern day football, obviously back 10 years ago, I think the kind of fullbacks you had then, Wan-Bissaka would be unbelievable, but I think now kind of you need a bit of both, and I just don't think Wan-Bissaka is that good at going forward. And I was actually kind of surprised the other day I seen a stat. He has 14 clear-cut chances he made this year, which is very, very good for Wan-Bissaka, because I even give him a slate myself kind of on the ball and that, but I just think James is a bit of both, and I'd have him over Trent and I'd have him over Wan-Bissaka. And whether that's a bit of bias or not, I don't know, but I'd have James in there over the both of them. And then also Duncan Castles, Duncan Castles is fairly poor now, to be honest. Doesn't get much right, to be honest with you, and a bit of a spoofer, but so no, I kind of touched on everything really. Kind of the centre back for Arsenal, like we spoke about, kind of they could do better with a centre back partner for Gabriel, maybe. Maybe Ibrahim Konate, who I mentioned for Chelsea earlier on, 38 million release clause. He's well within Arsenal's reach. I think if you made a move from him, you could definitely kind of bring a Konate in. He could make a big difference to that Arsenal backline. But yeah, kind of that's to touch on kind of Chelsea, Arsenal, and Spurs. Obviously West Ham there now, who may spend in the summer if they can get Champions League or Europa League football. I'd actually like to see West Ham doing well. Obviously, don't want them to get Champions League football because that'd mean we'd probably drop out of the top 4 spots. But maybe if they get a Tammy Abraham in the summer off of us, they might be solid again next year. They've a good striker, because I think Abraham could bang in 15 or 20 a season most seasons. Like, if he's playing with a team like West Ham starting week in, week out. I just think he's a bit raw now at the moment, and he's far from being the complete forward that Chelsea need. Like, and Chelsea need it now. It's kind of, everyone knows with Chelsea, it's kind of, it's knife edge stuff where you have to be successful. You're gone. Like, Lampard would have learned that during the year, and I think that the striker we need to bring in is a Haaland or an Aguero who needs to be an instant success. Like, Daniel again. Then what about Benzema to Chelsea? Do you know what? I take your hand off for Benzema. Never going to happen. But I know he's 32 years of age now, I think. But I'd absolutely love Benzema. I think he's a top player. Like, and he brings all the others into the game. He's hold up play. He's build up play. The whole lot is perfect. I think he's very, very underrated. I actually listened to a pod earlier on, and they were speaking about him. Like, it just kind of brought back, like, I was thinking about him. He's such a good player, and he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves most of the time. It's only kind of really when Ronaldo left, he started getting a bit of recognition. And I can tell you right now, when Ronaldo was there, Ronaldo was going to do what he done, regardless of who he's playing beside. But you could have had a lot more top strikers there who will be thinking in their head, right, he's not getting everything, the whole lot. Like, I need goals, I want to be in the spotlight as well. Not once did Benzema do that. Kept his head down the whole time. He's a team player, and I really like that about him. I think he'd be a top signing, but I just don't think he's going to leave Madrid after been there this long. He's there with a long time now and still has a bit of a contract left, so I think he's going to stay at Madrid. But yeah, good show for a top striker on you there, Daniel. Then John Dawson said, I'm going to put this one up now for the Arsenal fans, William. Demba Ba to Arsenal, surely better than Aubameyang. What do you think, William? Demba Ba for Aubameyang. Won't be a bad shout. But yeah, no, I that's basically all the kind of London teams covered. I'm not quite sure what West Ham could bring in the summer. Obviously a striker is well needed. If Rice goes, they'd be doing well to hold on to Lingard with the money they're going to get for Rice, or kind of vice versa. They could get Lingard money for Rice, or they could get Abraham money for Rice, and if they get one or the other, they can use the cash to kind of buy the other one. I think would be very good. Then just kind of before we finish up, I'll touch on Daniel's comment there, asking what my Premier League 11 so far is this season. So this is kind of on the spot. I suppose it's kind of tough one to think about. Suppose if you're sticking with the common kind of 4-3-3 that's used nowadays, I'd have Emi Martinez in goal. He's been fantastic, and Villa aren't where they are for no reason. Like, and he's a big part of why they're doing so well. Left back Luke Shaw walks in. He's been the best left back in England this year easily, both defensively and going forward. He's been fantastic. Centre backs can be kind of tough one, I suppose. Suppose you're looking at Ruben Diaz walks in. Actually, sorry. Ruben Diaz has been the best centre back in the Premier League again this season, one of the best in Europe. And to be honest with you, I'm going to go with John Stones as well. They have possibly the best defence in England, and they can't really kind of go past that as a partnership. If Thiago Silva wasn't injured for as long as he has been, I would have Silva in there. He's been phenomenal for Chelsea, but at the minute when you're looking at it, has to be John Stones and Ruben Diaz. And right back then, I think Cancelo walks in there as well. He's a great right back, and he's kind of a utility man in Guardiola's team. He can play so many different roles, but he's doing it to a high level. And in the defensive midfield, I'd have Declan Rice. I think he's right up there for Young Player of the Year so far in Premier League this year. Like, West Ham are 5th. No one would have put them in that position to start of the year, and they're flying, and he's a massive part of that. Like, captain there, and he's an absolute leader, warrior. Suppose the other two centre mids, then you'd have Bruno there. Kind of died off for a couple of games, but obviously no one can deny the talent he has and what he brings to United this year. So Bruno will be in there. What other centre mid did I stick in? I suppose you have to go Gundogan. City, like, they have to have a lot of players in this team because they top the league. They run away with it. They're easily the best team in England this season. But Gundogan, the form he showed over the last 15 games is unbelievable. He's gotten some winners for them, won a lot of points, and that's so Gundogan, I suppose, Fernandes and Rice. Then left wing, who I want to put in, but he's been injured the last while, is Jack Grealish. Obviously, before the injury, he's up there with Bruno to be the best player in England this year for Player of the Year award. I think Grealish, if he wasn't injured for so long, he'd get in there no problem. The injury kind of has killed his momentum a bit. Seeing John there mentioned Son Son's another good shout. Has a very good season so far. But I'm going to have to go Timo Werner. Timo is better than Son. He's better than Rashford. He's better than Auba. He's better than Jack Grealish. Only resting. Now Grealish has to be in there. I can't think of anyone else really for left wing. Only Grealish. The levels he kind of performed at, even when Liverpool had Van Dijk, he tore them a new one that game 7-2. Like, for a striker, only one man gets in there. Is Harry Kane. Harry Kane walks into the team. Best striker in the league by far. I think he's the second best striker in Europe. Not only does he score goals, he can also make everything. He brings everyone else into play. He drops deep. He can do everything. Such a good striker. And then I suppose right wing. I suppose he hasn't been playing so well, but he's banging in goals. Salah, I suppose you can't really look past Salah there. He's up there. He's going to be up there for the top scorers at the end of the year. Hasn't really kind of lit the world alight, but he's been banging in goals, and that's what you need out of your wingers. So Salah be there, so that'd be my team. So just Daniel's team there, fairly similar. Martinez in goal, like myself. Shaw walks in, obviously. Diaz, then the inclusion of Dawson, which I won't argue with because West Ham are doing so well, and he's been playing very, very well. So I can't really argue with that. Cancelo again, great player. Ndidi, can't argue with that. I thought about him with Rice. I'm just going to go with Rice because I think Rice is a bit better on the ball and he's kind of shown more going forward this year. But Ndidi is an absolute animal. He'd be looking at, I think, 90 to 100 million to even fucking prize him away from Leicester at the moment. Gundogan, Bruno, Grealish, Kane, Salah, same forward line as well. So I think that's fairly spot on, to be honest. We can have your debates about your John Stones or Dawson or your Declan Rice and Ndidi. They're up for the debate. Completely get that. So I think two solid teams. So yeah, that'll be my 11 so far this year. Could change come the end of the year. One of those players that are kind of on the cusp of it, like a Son, could show a bit of form kind of coming into the end of the year. He could get Spurs to top four when he's back from injury, whenever that is. But someone like that could get in there. So basically, yeah, I've covered all transfer speculation, all transfer news, what the London clubs want, kind of the Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, touched on West Ham, all those teams. Thanks again for anyone in the comments. That has been very, very good today. It always makes the show a lot better when you have comments coming in. To kind of for discussions and seeing the fans and the viewers kind of views. Really appreciate them. Just before I go, kind of have a little comment there from William in relation to the Demba one there. He said Alba only has 4 less goals than Rashford this year in all competitions. Is fine. Something I actually didn't know. Rashford is phenomenal though. Like I really do like Rashford, but I suppose Rashford kind of did he have 1 or 2 injuries throughout the year and he's kind of injured at the moment. I just don't think he's obviously been unbelievable in some games like against Leipzig and that, but I think Rashford has a whole new level that he hasn't reached yet. I think he can be the best left winger in England in years to come, definitely 100%. And then just to touch on Daniel's comment there, so all-time Premier League 11 next time, but you're going to have 1 player from each team. It's very good. Actually, it's a topic we can touch on next time we have a London show. It'd be definitely make for a good discussion and an interesting one for if we can get a few different members of the podcast on, kind of see everyone else's different views and who they'd have in. Thanks for that shout, Daniel. So once again, just really appreciate all the comments on the show and make sure to subscribe to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. You'll see the app below. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. You'll see my @name right underneath me there in the image. For more like football and opinions, and if you follow the weekly Armchair, you can kind of keep up to date with the shows that we're going to do. And we do a lot of shows every week. Subscribe to us on Twitter. Same on Twitter, so this weekly Armchair Kickoff. Make sure to subscribe to that and follow the Twitter page and even Facebook. We're on Facebook too, so make sure to stay in touch and you can kind of get updates on what shows we're doing, when and where. So yeah, it's very, very, very good, and we have a lot of knowledgeable people on the podcast. We'll enjoy listening to every week. We'll make sure to get more special guests on as well. So make sure to stay tuned, and thanks to everyone for popping in today and commenting, and make sure to comment on the next one as well and follow the other shows. Thanks, guys.